from a completely Mark Boy perspective, do you have any idea how rock star that is?
No.
Hey, this is Party Like a Rockstar podcast, and I'm your host, Joel. Today's episode is brought to you by Misha's Kind Foods. They're an LA-based small business making the world's finest non-dairy cheese on the market today. They're lactose-free, paleo, keto, kosher, Parev, and 100% vegan. If you like what you see, check out the next video. If you like this video, please subscribe and like by clicking the little round button on the bottom right. To learn more about me or other guests on the show, go to joelrody.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. The handle is Joel Rody. If you haven't already read my book, Memoir of a Roadie, it's now available through Amazon and paperback Kindle or as an audiobook. I hope you enjoy the show.
Mm-hmm. And these poor guys got to get up at 7. And I'm like,
Yep.
And I don't know how they do it every day. There was
we
so
get
many
up at
guys.
5, by the way, Snake.
What's that?
We get up at 5, none of this 7 o'clock crap.
Oh, you're lucky. You're really lucky. You picked the shortest straw, you poor guy. But
and then you work for a guitar player that breaks his ankle within the first week of the show. So then your job, it just gets 10 times harder because you got to find a bar stool and you got to get all this stuff so Snake couldn't walk. So throw all those elements of live into that mix. It was a blast.
And man, that's talk about working hurt.
Dude, here's the thing. So we're scheduled. This shows you like how a person can go from being one of the most responsible people to one of the most irresponsible people in a space of about 2 weeks. So we land this tour, the KISS tour. And for me and the guys in the band, it was one of those things where we couldn't believe it. We had changed a couple members. We got a new singer, a new drummer. And that's always a difficult prospect for any band. Very few bands get the opportunity to become successful after that. A lot of bands just kind of fall by the wayside. But somehow through Doc McGee, we were able to get the KISS tour. And so the first show of the KISS tour, I believe was on April 11th. And my best friend's wedding that I was the best man in was on April 10th. And this is April 10th, 2000. No, this is, yeah. So I'm obliterated at this after the wedding. I'm obliterated. And I can't stop getting tanked. Like I'm hanged to tank. There's no stopping me. I'm on a mission. Well, I don't remember probably the last 8 hours of the night, but I know that I was still sleeping in my bed in my house when the guy, the groom, comes back to my house to pick up my tuxedo and realizes that I should have been at the airport 2 hours ago for the first show. I was flying in the day of the first show in Phoenix. So he gets in my car and drives me to Newark Airport where I'm flying out of. That flight, it left. So I'm like, is there any other flights in any of the local airports, JFK or LaGuardia or whatever? So we run up to JFK, miss that flight. I'm going, holy shit, man, this is going to be trouble. So I'm nervous and I'm hungover and I'm sweating booze and I just stink and I look retarded and I'm just really bad. Like I'm just a mess. And so I end up hiring a private plane to fly out to Phoenix. And I go, I need to be there by 6:30. And they go, okay, we got you. So $18,000 later, I'm in the air and we start descending and I look at my watch or whatever in my phone and it's 5:30. I'm going, this is amazing. I'm going to make the show. And I'm like clapping. I'm the only guy. Like it's like a G4 or G5 and I'm in the back by myself, like just completely embarrassed and I'm like, oh my God, what are my guys, gonna think? And So we land, and I'm congratulating the pilots and stuff, and they're like, "No, dude, we're refueling." I'm like,
Oh.
I go, "What time are we gonna get there?" They're like 8:30. I go, "Guys, you told me we'd be there at 6:30." They're like, "Well, I don't know who told you that, but they were wrong." I'm like, so I got there at 8:30. Kiss is on. My band is like not even looking at me. I got to go to Doc McGee, and Doc is like, "Dude, you should have just gave each guy in the band a couple grand and called it a day and showed up tomorrow." But because I was on the phone with him the whole time going, "I'm going to make it." He's like, "Dude, you're not going to make it." I go, "I'm going to make it. You'll see." And I didn't make it. And so the band, the very first show with Kiss, playing with our heroes on a tour, and haven't played a Skid Row in 4 years. We're getting to open up for icons, legendary, on their farewell tour. We didn't play because of my ass.
Oof.
But I unloaded, all the gear got loaded, the stage was set, we were ready to go. I almost played guitar and filled in for you, Snake. I would have done that for you.
I mean, okay. Snake, you know what? Before you came on, I said, like, I always go like, so I am the least rock and roll person here on this little discussion we're having, right? So I am like just completely fanboy. I am the rock and roll mark, right? I don't know the inner workings of the business. And you know what? There's, yes, like letting your bandmates down, like you said, I can only imagine. But from a completely Mark Boy perspective, do you have any idea how rock star that is?
You know what the funny thing is? Is that I've been told by like my friends who are like in other bands and stuff. They're like, "Dude, it sucks, but that rocks." Like that rocks.
And it does.
And I was able to get some of my money back too, because I called American Express and I told them what happened, and I got half my money back. So I was like, okay. But cut to, so we missed that show in Phoenix.
I would have loved to be on the American Express. So what's your name? It's David.
Yeah, right.
Oh, you're not the guitar player.
Right, exactly. But it was a business card, so I was able to get away with it, right? But so we played another show in Arizona, I believe. And so we went and played a club show, and then we played on the second date of the tour, and we actually played. So the third or fourth show was in Las Vegas, and we had a day off before. Now I'm on a roll, man. I'm like, woohoo! You know, it's like there's just no stopping me, man. Like mouth underneath the tap type of thing. And so we're in Vegas. I'm in the Hard Rock Hotel. It's 4:00 in the morning. I'm with these three girls that I've known that are friends of mine from Los Angeles. They came out to the show, and we've known each other forever, and just good friends. And we're walking, the four of us are walking across the floor of the casino, and we're on like a parquet floor. And then the next thing I know, I fall in a spill. I fall down forward, then backwards, and my left foot goes completely backwards. So I broke every bone in my ankle, and there's three major bones.
Rough.
So the Kiss crew guys were there as well, and they heard it, and they came over, and my foot is backwards. So I look down at my boot, and it's facing behind me. So I grab my boot and turn it around forward. Now, I'm not feeling any pain, to be quite honest with you, but I know this is not good. And I also know from having a lot of injuries in my life playing sports and whatnot, that the worst thing to do at this moment would be take the boot off. Like the best thing to do is just contain that thing right there until you can get to the hospital. And I told the Kiss guys, because a couple of guys came over, I'm like, don't take my boot off. Don't take my boot off. They were like, no, we have to. They took the boot off, and the ankle went like that. And oh my gosh. So we get to the hospital. They do an operation on me. They put 9 screws and 3 plates in my ankle. And I wake up and I'm in hospital scrubs. And I go, what time is it? And they're like, it's 5:30 or 6 o'clock. I go, I got to get out of here. They're like, you're not going anywhere. I got a Frankenstein cast on my left foot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not going anywhere. Like I'm still anesthesiaed up and morphine or whatever they got me on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm out of here. So the girls waited for me. Poor TJ got the phone call at 5 a.m.
Told you we were up at 5. Told you.
Snake, right? Snake's in the hospital.
Uh-huh.
So he calls Rachel, our bass player, is like my partner in the band, and calls him and goes, Snake's in the hospital. And like, oh Christ, what happened now? Like I just missed the show because I was, partying at my friend's wedding, and now I slip and fall. I'm in the hospital getting operated on, and it's just a comedy of errors, going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so the girls that I was with came back and checked on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, I got to get out of here. And so I signed myself out and I show up. I'm in a wheelchair getting out of there. They put me in this car and they have a small rent-a-car or one of their cars. And they start driving and there's tons of traffic going to the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, we got to do something. So we see a police officer and we explain to him what's going on. I'm playing Skid Row. I got to get to the show. He's like, oh, okay. So he figures out a way to get us to the show. I come through the back door and production was right there and Doc is right there. And I come in on crutches with a wheelchair behind me in nothing but hospital scrubs and this Frankenstein foot cast. And I'm a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And Doc and I are, Doc's my mentor, my older brother, everything. And he just looks at me and he starts laughing because they knew what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I go in the dressing room and my band members look at me like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like, really? Like, really? So now at this point, it's 7:00 and we go on at 7:30. Mm-hmm. And I go, I'm playing. Mm-hmm. They're like, dude, you can't even talk. Like, here, eat something and see what happens. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to eat peas. TJ remembers it because it's embedded in everybody's memory. Yeah. I'm trying to eat peas and I'm like this. And they're falling all over me. And it's just, there's gravy. And I'm in hospital scrubs. And the band, and I'm passing out and I'm waking up. And the band is like, dude, we're going on in like 20 minutes. There is just no way. And I was forced to watch the band that I helped create from the side of the stage in a wheelchair. And it was the most humbling, humiliating thing, but it makes for a great story. So you weigh and measure.
Did they roll you out during the show?
No, but I didn't miss another show after that. Like, they had a bar stool set up for me, and I was on a bar stool for maybe one song. I can't do this. So I'm hobbling around on this big cast, right? And I cut a pair of leather pants so they'd fit over the cast and, for the one leg, and just making it, I would magic marker kiss on my toes because they'd zoom in with the cameras for the big screens and they'd see my janky toes with Kiss logo on them. And we played 10 shows and I got better at hobbling around on the stage and because I just sitting down was just not an option. It just wouldn't happen. Mm-hmm. So we're in Bakersfield and I made this thing that we would collect wheelchairs from all the venues because they had to wheel me out to the bus. And so I'm putting all these wheelchairs in the bay of the bus and the band is so pissed off at me now because I'm taking up all the space. I got 7 wheelchairs in the bus, in the bottom of the bus. So they've got no place to put a friggin' suitcase this big.
All right, hold on. I got a surprise guest coming. There's more.
Okay. Aron, so the guy that's coming in is my best friend who I was best man at his wedding when I missed the first show.
Oh, so yeah, he's responsible for like the greatest rock and roll story I've ever heard.
Yeah, well, he was driving. He was the driver.
Do you want me to tell you the true story?
Mike, turn on your video. You got at the bottom left. You got to click.
Yeah, I'm on. There I am.
Hi, buddy.
How you doing, man?
TJ didn't know you were coming on either.
So, did you already go through the story of what happened?
Well, we went through it, but let's hear your version.
All right, yeah, because my version is probably the truth. I know how much you lie. So it was after my wedding, and I told him just to leave the tux at his house, and I would come down and pick it up.
Can I hold on? Let me preface this too, Aron. I've known Mike and his family since we were about 8 years old. So we used to play basketball together at the church and stuff like that. And so Mike and I have been really, really close for over 40 years, for over 45 years.
Like family status.
Without a doubt.
Sure. So I get down to his house, and I'm thinking, I go to put the key in the door, and the door is ajar. So to say, it was open. And I open the door. I'm like, now I think someone broke in. And I'm like, hello? And I hear, yo. I go, dude, what are you doing here? Yeah. I go, you missed your flight, dude. You missed your flight. Oh, my God. I hear a bunch of rustling going on. We proceed to get him packed, and we get into his vet at the time. And was it raining out, Snake, or it had rained?
Dude, I couldn't even open my eyes. I don't know.
We're doing 115 up the Parkway, and we went to 3 different airports, and he finally ended up paying, I don't know, through the nose for a flight that he didn't even make the show.
18. I told the same story.
Yeah. That was pretty. That coincided. Yeah.
But I couldn't believe it when I got there and the door was open and he was just still hammered.
So, hey, I got an idea. Let's talk about the Bachelor Party. Remember, Mike? Remember your Bachelor Party?
I don't. Let's not bring that up.
Oh, yeah.
Right. We're being recorded, TJ.
First of all, Mike, what a friend you are. Like, you had just gotten married. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Totally cool.
We weren't going on our honeymoon until like the following Monday. So I had a day to return everything, and but just trying to get to an airport. Where did we end up in Long Island, right?
Yeah, we ended up in Long Island. I ended up chartering a G4, G5. I forget what it was.
I think it was Reading, right? Was it Reading Airport?
Islip, I think. Or no, it was oh my God, it's right down was it Huntington?
It's
right down. It's Republic Airport, right down the street.
Farmingdale. Yeah,
Farmingdale.
I knew it was an R.
I live right by there now, which is the funniest thing.
Yeah, you're a secret Long Islander. We always talk about Billy Joel. We never talk about you as the Long Island guy. It's such a shame.
We should probably change that because that's despicable.
Joan Jett lives on my block, but we never talk about Snake Sabo being.
Yeah, man. The fuck. But yeah, so Mike, I'm telling the story right now about when I broke my ankle out in Las Vegas. So I'm playing all these shows. We're collecting wheelchairs. The band is super pissed off at me, and we're in Bakersfield, and I'm getting wheeled out, and my leg is straight up. And one of the EMT persons that were there goes, dude, you've got a problem. And I go, what do you mean? She's like, the bottom of your cast is soaked with blood. We have to get you to the hospital like right now. So TJ comes with me. Turns out the EMT was Jonathan Davis's sister, Jonathan Davis, from the singer from Korn. It was his sister that took me to the hospital with TJ.
Wow.
So they pull the cast off of me. And it's one of the most, TJ had to turn away because he was about to throw up because there's all these blood bubbles and it was so gross. We have a picture of it. I think I have it on my phone. And it's gross, man. I mean, it just looks like a toxic piece of meat that got mauled by a bear with bad breath. It was brutal.
So kind of you had your face on your foot.
Exactly. So that was the first 10 days of the Kiss tour.
So would you, again, a fanboy question?
Sure.
Would you guys, because like with us, right, when we're on the road 300 days a year, like, would you guys, like, we call them ribs in the wrestling business, which are kind of like playing I mean, did the guys kind of ride you for how you kick the tour off? Like, cause like stuff like, I mean, I'm thinking okay, like the wheelchairs, we would have had someone come and like weld all the wheelchairs together. So when you went to get them out, they would be this solid mass, like just stuff like that. Like, was there any kind of shenanigans like that going on?
Well, they just threw the wheelchairs away. They were sick of it. They just got rid of them. They're like, fuck you, dude. But like the KISS guys, the greatest memory I have is simply because two things. The day after it happened, Paul Stanley came right in the dressing room to see how I was doing, which I thought was really, really something. Like that a guy of his stature found out when we were arriving at the venue and came in like an hour after we were there, and just to say, you okay? And what can I do for you? And like, that was so commendable. And I'll always be indebted for that gesture. But they would be doing sound check, and I would go out and watch their sound check, and I'm either in a wheelchair or on crutches. And both Gene and Paul would walk across the stage, like dragging their leg, like limping, just to make fun of me. And it's like we took video of it and stuff like that. And I ended up having some form of cast on my leg just so I could have mobility for close to 6 months of a 9-month tour. And you know what? It sounds worse than it was, to be honest with you. The first week or two were bad, but I was on so many painkillers, and it certainly was helpful that I didn't curtail my drinking either. So I was really responsible. Like I took it very seriously. And these poor guys, that TJ shaking his head, because that's what I would see every night. Like after a show, they'd be like, what's next, man?
Well, it's good you got it out up front, though. That's actually, you know what? That's the responsible thing to do. Because if you're in the middle of tour in your group, no, get it done up front. Then we, mend the fences you have to mend and move on. That's so,
Mike, I want to tell you, in case you don't know, Aron is one of my favorite wrestlers, who was Mr. Damien Sandow in WWE, and did a bunch of amazing programs in there, and now is in NWA, and also acting. So I am a fan of his, to say the least.
And he is the host of the A Show podcast.
Oh,
since I never introduced him, let me introduce everybody.
Oh yeah, no, it's all good. I think we know me at this point. I haven't shut up. God, it's like
we've got my buddy Darren Paltrowitz, who's actually the glue to put all of you guys together, believe it or not, because he's the one who told me that you're a huge wrestling fan, Snake, and he knows I'm good buddies with Aron.
So, this is mega, man, for me.
So Aron,
same here. Yeah.
Darren's the host of Paltrocast with Darren Paltrowitz, and he's also a well-published journalist who's interviewed fucking everybody. Seriously, it's ridiculous. So, TJ Hoffmann, you made a film called, what do we got here? Roadie, My Documentary, which is what started all of this here today. And Mike Thompson, other than being Snake's only friend.
Right. And that's a stretch.
Is the front of house. He does monitors. He's the tour manager. He's worked for Down, Anthrax, Black Label Society.
And Skid Row too, dude. What?
Skid Row.
I started out by Snake needed a tech.
Yeah.
And he's like, why don't you come on the road? And it was all way downhill from there. And I don't know how he remembers some of the things that he remembers, but I'm like, dude, you remember how he's like, yeah, February 21st, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I used to, when we were kids, I actually would teach Mike guitar.
Yeah.
And so
that's cool.
And I was a terrible teacher.
He was horrible.
Straight up terrible. I was more interested in comedy than I was teaching.
It is weird, right? Like, because people have asked me to do like wrestling seminars. Like, no, I can't do that, right? I can do this, but I can't teach it. It takes a special person.
Well, it's like, I'm not a wrestler, but I played one on TV, like.
Yeah. Yes.
It's kind of like me and in the same way.
When, you know Santino Marella, right?
Of course. Oh, jeez.
About him, right? Him and I are like best friends.
Oh,
pretty much. Yeah. Like
tell him I'm a fan of his, and I'm so happy he's got a wrestling school in Toronto, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so it was, again, 2019. I go to, hang out with him for a month and whatever. He's also like a black belt in judo, and he's a badass in real life.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, dude, like show me some judo. And I don't know if it was because we were friends, because he has like his students have won awards. Like they win tournaments and stuff, but like he's trying to show me. I'm like, and again, this is in front of the students, so it's kind of weird because they do pro wrestling, but they have jujitsu and judo and all this other crazy stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, you're a horrible teacher. Like, actually show me something. I'm like, what the fuck's going on, man? Come on. You're better than this, dude. And so it was just funny how, like, sometimes when we're friends, right? Like just it ain't in the cards.
Oh my gosh.
So Snake, Aron, you'll appreciate this. We land in Taiwan and Snake had just acquired 2 wrestling masks and they had a zipper across the mouth. So we're in Taiwan. And
looks like a bondage mask, actually.
He calls me within minutes, and he's like, "Dude, I can't turn the air conditioner on in my room." I'm like, "It's right on the wall." He's like, "There's nothing there." I said, "I'll be right over." I go over. There's nothing on the wall. We can't figure out how to turn it out. So I turn it on. So I call downstairs, and they're like, "We'll send up, a technician. He'll be up in a second." So me and Snake had this bright idea to put the mask on and make believe his hands were tied behind his back and sit on the bed.
Oh, that's good.
So we're expecting a 50 to 60-year-old man to walk in, 75-year-old woman.
Oh, no.
Snake doesn't blink an eye, doesn't move, and she's shuffling past him, just staring at me, staring at him. It's on the clock radio. She turns the air on and just walks out. And Snake never batted an eye, didn't move. I was like, dude, that was horrible.
Like, didn't even call like the cops or anything like that. No one showed up at the room to see if I was safe. Nothing.
Wow, that's good.
Just like, fuck it, man. Our government sucks. This is probably something like about that. I'll stay out of it.
I wonder if she brought it up at dinner. She's like at home. It's like, how did it go today at work? And she's like,
And then
I'm sure it made a great story for her.
Bottle of Absolute. Remember the mango Absolute?
Oh, that's good.
Oh, I'll never drink it again. I threw it up for hours.
It was a crazy trip because there was. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I can't even smell mango since then. And they charged us each $700 because we chose to go off the beaten path and go to this dive bar. Yep. And both of our cars got hit for like $710 or something.
Yep. Stupid Gaijing. That's what happened.
And I have a similar story in the Philippines, which we won't talk about on the air, but it's but you know what though? I always dug that, right? Like when you're overseas, it's like you have your tourist traps and everything and like your main spots, but I've always enjoyed kind of going off the beaten path a little bit. Like where's, like kind of like the soul of the town, like where that's right. Yeah, always been my thing.
We did it in China. You remember that bar we went into, Snake, and it had the dead parakeet hanging over your head in the cage?
Yes, of course. China.
What would you expect? And we proceeded to just drink them anyway.
Nice. Would you expect anything less from a bar in China? I mean,
very cool.
We went to Borneo, which I didn't even know really existed. I remember there was a Little Rascals episode when we were kids called The Wild Man from Borneo. And he was like, blah, 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 eat him up. And so we went to Borneo and it took us 2 or 3 days to get there. 2 days or 3 days. Was it, Mike? You and I.
It was like 3 days with that crazy bus ride.
And we were, it was like all told, it was like a 42-hour plane trip all combined. Yeah, it was rough. And we ended up sound checking at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and the humidity and the heat was absolutely overwhelming. And there was just tons of like bats and mosquitoes. We were in the middle of this field in the middle of the forest. And I don't understand how people got there or where they even came from, but the place was packed and it was bizarre. I would never go there again, but I'm glad that we went there and did that. Because
how did you not bring that up in the earlier where I'm like, what's the strangest places you've ever played? And you're like,
that's a good question. I don't know because I'm thinking about it now, and we've been to some pretty, like China was really, really interesting because we were there when they were having the 60th anniversary of communism or socialism, however you want to refer to it. And it was called the People's Day. And we were in Tiananmen Square, and there's 300,000 people in Tiananmen Square. And they have these huge television monitors on either side of the gates that are there. And they're showing on the screens the CNN feed of what's happening in Tiananmen Square. It was the most bizarre thing in the world. So we're watching ourselves, seeing ourselves on this giant screen in China from CNN. It was
wow.
It was totally bizarre.
But
wow.
it's very strange, man. And you know, they tell you when you get over there, as they do in Thailand and certain countries, Russia was the same back in the day, that they explain to you, like, look, you know, everything's cool. You just cannot mention politics.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Like,
do you remember being in Bangkok, Snake, and you crossed your legs and your leg was pointing at that chick?
Yep.
She got up and took his leg and put it down. It's considered, your feet are considered the lowest part and the dirtiest part of your body. And if you're pointing at somebody, they freak out.
Huh. I never heard that.
And if you put your leg over somebody else's, it's same thing. It's deemed disrespectful. If you put anything of a higher part of your body over someone else's part of their body, it's deemed disrespectful. It was really strange. Like, we had when we got there, we had a list of what was considered disrespectful to the culture. And I think when we got there, the king or the prince had passed away, and they mourned for a year over there. It's crazy. So
how did it work when you were in Thailand with all those girls, Darren? Were you allowed to do that, or was that disrespectful?
What was the question? Sorry.
Mr. Darren, I was being smart ass. It's okay.
I've never been there, but actually, Snake, question for you. I've watched a great concert that you were part of. It might have been 92, like Slave to the Grind era. And I think it was an NHK TV kind of concert. Yeah. And your old singer was reading out stupid things in Japanese to the audience, which was so funny. Ha, 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 ha.
Funny to you.
Yeah, no. I'm giving the quotes while you were covering your eyes there. It's
okay.
It did not age well. So I'm curious how that happens, yet you guys were given the rundown on etiquette here and there, yet no one stopped that.
We had that was Budokan. And we had 2 sold out nights at Budokan. And the one night, I guess it was, I don't know whether it was the first or the second night, was being broadcast on NHK TV, which is like the ABC or the NBC of Japanese television. And we had this unbelievably respected journalist. His name was Masa Ito, and he was hosting the whole thing. And so we had been to Japan previously, and we were somewhat accustomed to, you know, how things work over there. But when that moment occurred, I wish I had like a 1 mile long guitar cable that I could have ran down to Roppongi and, you know, gotten a Sapporo and 6 bottles of sake while that was happening. So to say it was a cringeworthy moment would be the understatement of this conversation.
But on a brighter note, you guys sounded amazing in that concert.
Wow.
And I think
Thank you.
Aron has emphasized this. Skid Row is a classic band with an incredible catalog that stands the test of time. Even Ozone Monday is good. So lots of respect with that.
You're one of the 5 people that liked it. So, Aron, not to change the subject, I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. Where was your favorite? Because I get this asked all the time. Outside of the United States, where was your favorite place to wrestle?
Oh, yeah. God, like, I say the UK. You know, there was some, like, especially when I was Intellectual Savior. No, I'm sorry. When I was Mizdow, like the O2, like it was just.
Oh yeah.
I mean, God, we'd go and I would be okay, like, because you know, you get used to it. You almost get kind of. I mean, it never is not awesome, but you know, every night you get people screaming, like it's just like, okay, this is what I do. Let's go rock it, you know?
Right.
But there was a couple times in London when it was like, all right, this is cool. Ireland, there was a we were in Belfast, and it was a smaller arena, but they were loud.
Oh, dude, yes.
But strangest thing ever, when I was the Intellectual Savior, Remember when I had the pink tights and I was smarter than everybody, right? So that character was universally despised on site because it was kind of a throwback. It was just like, I'm a bad guy. And in wrestling at the time, there wasn't a lot of people that were doing that. Everyone was kind of trying to be cool. So I went the opposite direction, and it went over well. Paris, France. This was the first time I had appeared there as Sandow. And I was like, I remember walking out, and the crowd just went nuts cheering.
Oh, really?
And I'm going like, wait a minute. Yeah. Like as soon as like they hit the Hallelujah chorus, it was like a babyface response. And I'm going, did they get TV here? Like, are they that big of fans of Handel? Like what's going on here? But apparently the French, they enjoyed the character because like they thought I was actually trying to bring sophistication back. And I was just, I don't know if it was like the degree of uninhibitedness, because you know, I do the cartwheel, I would act effeminate, and then I'd go back to being Hannibal Lecter. But that was just shocking.
Hey, not to interrupt, guys. Sorry, I got to step away for a second. Zach just pulled up.
All right.
Nice to meet you. So yeah, there's been, but you know, before I was in WWE, I was in Puerto Rico for a while, and
with Carlos Colon's company.
Yes, that
WWC,
was
right?
Yes. Oh my God, yeah. That was some wild shit. I mean, I got scars. I mean, people like taking a coin, right?
Yep.
Pair of pliers, and they'd sit there with a lighter. And then as I would walk to the ring, they'd stick you with them. I mean, I got maced by an old lady there. It was just a wild time. It was.
Dude, Brian Knobs. I mean, he told me stories getting stabbed, and you know, I mean,
well, that might have been from his hometown. I mean,
Brian probably was his family. But...
Yeah.
Why did the lady mace you?
Because I was on TV talking about how I'm better than everybody, and my character was, you know, Americans are superior to everyone from Puerto Rico. It was just an act, but people took it seriously. Like, and I may have mooned her.
And Kevin Sullivan used to get massive heat down there as well.
Yeah.
Abdullah the Butcher. I mean,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, it's so funny because we've only played Puerto Rico once, and it was with Bon Jovi, but we played an outdoor. It wasn't even an amphitheater. It looked like a bull ring almost, and but they literally had chicken wire around the stage. It was like, we're the good old Blues Brothers,
like the Blues Brothers. Yes.
Hell yeah. And so they would throw bottles at the stage. I mean, it was full on. Like they would throw lighters, quarters, bottles.
Do you remember all the cockfighting places in Puerto Rico?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I wanted to do for an encore.
Hey, Snake, I heard something random about the rock scene in Puerto Rico from a reliable person. He told me that Stryper was an all-time top 10 band in Puerto Rico. Have you ever heard that?
I haven't heard it, but it wouldn't surprise me because they're a really religious culture down there. Yeah. So that would make total sense to me. You know, it's like when you find out, like Mr. Big is one of the biggest bands in Indonesia and Southeast Asia.
Yes.
Like who would have thought? And so is
The Venture.
Firehouse is as well.
Yes. You're talking to all the people I interview. So, you know, that's the wheelhouse. I always have my big in Japan questions for them. And it's interesting when you find out like who's a rant. Like Loudness was not big in Japan. Loudness was big here. When you do the whole sphere of like who's big everywhere. And I guess, Aaron, like who are some of the wrestlers that never made it here that are from the States?
God, yeah. So like it's funny, right? Because like why culturally, whether you're talking music or wrestling, you know, in the entertainment business, culturally, why do some people connect with certain, we'll call them acts, right? Whatever they are, kind of generalize it. And, you know, there was a guy named Glamour Boy Shane in Puerto Rico, believe it or not, who he could not walk down the street. And I'm talking, he is blonde hair, blue eyed. He is American as you can get. He's about maybe, 6 feet, had a decent physique on him. Amazing in ring, but for some reason never got a break mainstream. And if you look at him, he had like all the tools to, and an amazing mind. Stan Hansen had some success over here, but people don't understand. Like in Japan, Stan Hansen was a different animal.
Oh, dude, him and Bruiser Brody were absolute huge, as was Big Van Vader.
Yes. and you know, Vader had a degree of success over here. Like, I mean, he, you know, he's Hall of Fame levels, I think, but like, yeah, like the people were afraid of him in Japan. It was a different deal. And you know, I equate it to Rodriguez in South Africa, right? Like, you guys seen like that? To me, that blew my mind.
Yeah.
And you know, how you could just, in the United States, you know, you're living in a borderline abandoned building, and then, you know, you go play the Coca-Cola Dome, and it's sold out, what, 3 nights in a row or something insane.
There's a band from Japan called X,
Mm-hmm.
and they did 10 nights at the Tokyo Dome,
Mm-hmm.
sold out like that.
Yeah.
No one would have a clue who they were outside of Japan and maybe some of the Asian countries.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have Bush, you have Mana, you have there's other groups like that.
It was 10 nights at Tokyo Dome.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's sold out. So that's minimum 600,000 people.
How much?
That's a minimum of 600,000 people across less than 2 weeks.
Wow.
Like with you guys, right?
Like the people who watch Darren's podcast.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's true.
Oh, by the way, Darren, I'm now following you on Instagram. I'll hit everyone up and follow them. I'm learning that now. So we can do some cross promotion if you'd like.
Likewise.
But what I was interested, like, would you guys notice, because with wrestling, it's weird, right? Like every town, the crowd would be different, right? Like when you would go to New York, New Jersey, it's not the same as going to like Memphis.
Yeah.
And Memphis is not the same as Cali. And was it like that for you guys? And when you get on the bigger scope, like country wise, I mean, I remember the first time I went to Russia, I was teaming with Cody, and, you know, we had a pretty decent little shtick, and we went out there and we're like, huh? And then like I did the cartwheel, and all of a sudden the place starts yelling. I was like, oh, this is strange. But it was just like the silence and then the pop. And I know Japan is like that. And like,
that was really weird for us. No one warned us about that. So it was really strange. Like we felt anger because we came out on stage and there's pyro and there's lights and this excitement, and they're just sitting there, and you're like, oh no, like we're dropping a turd right now. We must sound terrible. We must look like crap. And then all of a sudden the song ends, stand up, go berserk for 30 seconds, and then sit back down. And then you're like, after a couple songs, you're figuring out like, okay, this is just the culture of
like the Blues Brothers when they were playing Give Me Some Lovin', and the crowd just, like
exactly.
And what was weird about those shows too, Snake, if you remember, like nobody was in the joint, and then they opened doors and it was full in seconds.
In a second.
It was really, really crazy. And it was just a weird vibe.
I'm sure that's a tour manager's dream, huh? Like right before, like, oh my God, where is everybody? Where is everybody? Yeah, that's
freaking nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Aron, I want to ask you, do you or have you watched any of the Dark Side of the Ring stuff?
Yes. Yeah. I have.
What's your thoughts on it?
You know, I look at it this way, right? Through the magic, and I find this now as I kind of get more into the world of film and TV and everything. Editing is everything. Yeah. Right. Man. Like we can edit this podcast and it could make it sound like we hate each other. Right.
Yeah.
Good idea.
So we could do a match in, what was that country, Snake, that you said you played?
Oh, Borneo.
You could be the Bornean Snake. And you could come in the NWA. That's your name. And Bornean Venom is the name of your finish. We'll give you
my God. I'll wear like this awful mask.
The mask with the zipper.
Right.
TJ's your manager, right?
We're right. Be worse than Luchasaurus's mask. It'd be amazing.
We'll have a whole program. You know what? We'll get a hold of Billy and make.
Dude, I'm in. You kidding me? I can take a bump. I'm in.
Asian Spike, right to the freaking.
There we go.
Asian Spike. I know how to do the figure 4. I'm
awesome.
in.
We'll do it.
Yeah.
That'd be freaking funny as hell, man. Oh.
There used to be a guy that teamed with Chief J Strongbow in the WWF at the time, Billy White Wolf,
Yes.
And he
later
did
became
this
General
thing-
Adnan.
Yes, that's
That was
right.
General Adnan?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And he did a thing called, he did a version of the figure four that was just the legs became crossed and he had his foot in there. And it was for real, because I did it to my cousin and I nearly broke his legs. And I was like, oh man, this is like, you know, I mean, look, there was 90% of me when I was growing up that was, I bought into it. And if you told me that wrestling was fake, we would be fighting, you know. And even as I got older, I still wanted to hold on to that childlike innocence of, you know, Bruno Sammartino's my hero. And, you know, you're not going to tell me, like, put it this way, 1971, he lost the belt and Muhammad Ali lost to Joe Frazier. I was crushed, man. These are like my heroes. I'm like, what is happening? My world's falling apart. I'm only in the first grade. You know,
yeah. Yep.
But,
I get it.
So I held on to that. So when I was like figuring out, like I saw pictures of Ric Flair doing a figure four, and I saw Chief Billy White Wolf doing, I forget what he called it, but and I put it on one of my
the Indian Deathlock.
Indian Deathlock. That's right.
Yep.
Yes.
Who used to eat the fucking turnbuckle? Was that
George the Animal
George the
Steele.
Animal Steel with the green tongue?
Who did the
You ever see the
Scorpion?
comedy pilot that George the Animal Steele filmed like 2-3 years before he died?
No.
It's buried on YouTube. It's an attempt at a Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of thing. And I'm not going to tell you it's good. I would say, we were talking about Dick the Bruiser before. If you ever watch David Letterman interview Dick the Bruiser, like that's gold. George Steele comedy pilot, but watch it once.
You know what it is? It's like, it's context, right? Because like I think with wrestling, it's that cartoonish world. And when you try to say like, hey, we're going to do a show about this cartoonish world, and you then have these cartoon characters trying to be cartoonish, it doesn't work, you know? Like you almost have to just let the ridiculousness of it stand alone in real circumstances, I guess. Right? That's kind of.
Did any of you guys follow the Iron Sheik on Twitter?
Oh
yeah.
Do you got to do it if you're not following him? You got to follow him.
Amazing.
He's just, you know, how you doing? Fuck off.
And at one time, you know, we're talking about wrestling being a show. Sheik was legit. He was a bodyguard for the Shah of Iran. He was on the Iranian wrestling. I mean, that guy could.
Shit.
He was. Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
a
he
badass.
was in the '68 Olympics, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's next level with him. He was something. But I'm sorry. Like the Dark Side of the Ring, like, you know, the one about Canyon that came out, which was Canyon was a wrestler who ended up taking his own life and kind of like struggling with his own identity on a bunch of different levels. And I thought they did that justice, you know, in terms of telling his story objectively, because, you know, not to get, this isn't a political thing, but, you know, I think objective reporting is something that is lacking in the world today, you know, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But, I loved the Herb Abrams one.
Oh my God. It was one of my favorite ones.
Like that one, I ended up calling Steve Kern.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he knows B. Brian Blair. And I was like, dude, like, why were you not in this? And like, what? He's, well, you know, I was in WWF at the time. But I'm like, just tell Brian, like, how did I not, like, how was I not born 10 years earlier so I could have just worked for this guy? Like that environment. I was talking to Mick about it too. Like, just the insane, like, I love that. And in a weird way, I love that craziness out of it. But again, you know, when the checks don't clear, there's obviously an issue. But I do think the objectiveness as to how they're reporting the stories and they're telling the stories, I definitely dig, because with WWE, and this is not a knock on WWE, but it's just more of a statement to corporate culture, to where, and I'm sure the music business is like this, right? It's just kind of inherently what it is. And if I'm wrong, tell me, but like when you have one big entity, you know, WWE or you know, whoever like the big music tycoons are, they are going to control the narrative in terms of like, you're going to hear their story. And if they don't want someone interviewed, they just don't exist, you know? And again, the magic of editing. And I think like based off of the stories that I know, and kind of like what I've known from just being around the industry, like there's a certain level of just objective storytelling, and I really respect them for that.
Well, it was interesting. That particular episode was really interesting to me because you could see this guy on a path that you knew was not going to end well.
Yeah.
And so the people that were involved, I mean, he even had San Martino there. I mean, he had some real names there, you know, like it wasn't just, you know, backyard wrestling in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. It was like,
they had the potential.
It really did. It really did.
My favorite. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want to hear
the quote you're going to say. Right.
B. Brian Blair, when he is just completely serious, not trying. He goes, Herb Abram went out doing what he loved best, which is cocaine and hookers.
Hookers, that's the truth.
And it was just the most like stone. And I popped. I was like, that's.
That's pretty how much of what most guys who were successful in hard rock bands in the 80s wanted to go out as, you know.
He did it.
High on blow and naked with hookers.
Covered in baby oil.
That's the greatest thing in the world right there.
Nick, sorry, who did we go out to? Remember we went to the wrestling match and then we went out to breakfast with
we went out with Edge, who is Adam's a good friend of mine and still to this day. And
he's awesome.
Oh, he's great. Kane, and because Edge was doing a program with Kane at that particular time, and they did the Meadowlands. So we went out and it was a 3-way with CM Punk. They did a cage match, and it was so funny because CM Punk hit his balls on the top of the cage, and you can hear it's like, oh, that freaking hurt. It was pretty funny, but and then. Drew McIntyre and Alberto Del Rio were there. It was like this place that it's like a diner that's attached to a strip club right by the airport that everybody goes to in Newark. Everybody goes there. All the boys go there.
Got a freaking egg sandwich, and within 15 minutes, I was in the parking lot hurling beyond. It was horrible. I remember that we had to ask for like a bigger table because the guys were so damn big.
Oh yeah,
and it was like sort of surreal for me. It was a really cool experience, you know.
When we were down in Fort Lauderdale doing our second record, and there was a show that came into town, and I've been friends with Diamond Dallas Page since he was one of my favorite people. Great human being. He was a bouncer down the Jersey Shore. He used to let me into his club Xanadu when I was 18 years old, you know. And
18 in life to go. Sorry, I had to say
it. Nice. That was a can of corn right there.
I was waiting for that one. Sorry.
So I think it was DDP that hooked us up, but we went down and we were hanging with the boys at the hotel after the matches, and I'll never forget offering Sergeant Slaughter a shot. I was like, dude, and this is 91, 92. So I offer him a shot. And he's like, nah, I'm a pussy. I'm like, I can't believe Sergeant Slaughter just said that he's a pussy. It's amazing to me. Then what was the guy who was the tag team with the Barbarian?
Warlord.
Oh, one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen from left to right. I mean, it was just incredible. Yeah. I saw him eat 3 steaks that they had to be 24-ounce steaks. I saw him eat 3 of them. I was like, this is the most insane thing in the world. Meanwhile, I'm on like my 8th vodka. So, but everybody from Paul White to Mark the Undertaker, who remained a good friend for years and saw my mother in an airport and couldn't have been kinder. I mean,
that's so cool.
My mother was like 5'2", and you know how big Mark is, and so she walked up to him and she's like, you know my son Snake, and he's like, yeah, no, and gave her a big hug and sat there and talked to her. Oh, dude, it's just. But you know what? Most of the guys are like that. Like,
Poor
I
Mama
remember
Snake, man. What we freaking put her through.
Yeah, we put my mother through.
Oh
Just
my God. That one day after a night of debauchery when I didn't know she stayed over.
no.
Ooh.
She was in the other guest room next to mine, and I'll just say some really horrible shit happened that night. And she came out and she was like traumatized. I was like, oh my, I had no idea you stayed here. I'm so sorry. She just didn't even say a word and she just went downstairs.
Yeah, Mike had the company of a very vocal female.
It happens. It happens. Like,
It was hilarious.
Would your mom go to the shows?
Oh yeah. My mom was known as Mama Snake. Like, everybody knew my mother. She was probably one of the best promoters of the band she had. And it was so funny because she became like, so I guess well known, if you will, that our merchandise company started making Mama Snake shirts.
That's awesome.
It was
oh my
hilarious.
God. Yeah, my grandmother was like that. Yeah.
You know, and it was so cool because she was a big supporter of my music from the very beginning. And she wasn't too happy when I gave up sports altogether. Nobody in my family was, because they thought that was the direction I was going in was. And then when I got accepted and like a partial scholarship to Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute to become like an electrical engineer. And I decided to sell tools out of my trunk instead in mall parking lots, you know, and make
sometimes it's the path you're on. I get it.
Yeah, man. Because, you know, what's interesting is that I don't know when you knew what you were going to do, but I was really fortunate because I knew at 14, man, like at 14 years old, I just knew. I knew I would be in music. I didn't know what capacity it would be in, you know, but I just knew it. And it's one of those things that there was no falling back on anything. That was sort of the mentality that.
Did you ever fear though? What if I'm wrong?
No.
Really?
I would be very frustrated because it wasn't happening on my timeline that I set for myself. And so I learned a very valuable lesson was to never place a date on expectations. And so
are you a competitive person, you think?
I'm the most competitive
idiot. Oh my God, dude. I've almost killed and it's horrible because we'll be playing golf and he'll be playing like shit. And then once money becomes involved, it's a total freaking turnaround. I'm like, what the hell? You just suckered me.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe by clicking the round button on the bottom right. To learn more about me or the guests on the show, go to joelrody.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. The handle's Joel Rody. And don't forget, when you party like a rock star, don't be a dick.